some women, I mean, I would argue all, but okay, let's just say some, are so beautiful that a maybe rich but desperate man will literally pay $20,000 just to be with her. She is powerful. That is scary. So of course they're going to use all those disgusting words like whore and this and that. And I hate those words. And then they do it and it's like, but you're willing to pay the price. So the very politicians that are like, this is illegal, are the ones that are willing to pay the freaking price. The hypocrisy is insane. And I think it's because women and our beauty is literally it's so powerful.
Alrighty, Yasmeen, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so glad that you're here. We're here on Coffee Talk, where we have our coffee and we can cheers.
Cheers.
So Yasmeen is somebody that I know in my personal life, and we kind of have a funny story. I actually found her on the internet on a show, and I was scared. And also I was like, this woman is so amazing that I need to know her. And I reached out on, wasn't it Instagram? I like DM'd you on Instagram. Yeah. And I think we're going on like 3 years that we've known each other now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like in March or something, it's like, it'll be like 3 years. So she is definitely somebody that I trust and that I know. And I wanted to bring her onto this audience because she has so much financial wisdom. Will you tell my audience a little bit about you and what you do and
Yeah.
provide?
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you so much for having me on here. It really is an honor, and I cannot believe it's going to be 3 years. My name is Yasmeen, and I am a mixed person from Boston. So I am half Brazilian and I am half Arab. Daughter to 2 immigrants, first generation. I used to be an engineer, a bioengineer specifically. I thought I wanted to be a doctor. A long chain of events had happened that convinced me otherwise. I decided I wanted to be an entrepreneur instead. But here's a funny story. I remember saying, well, I know I want to do real estate, but I don't know what business I want to have. I don't even know if I want a business because I thought, what business am I going to do? Like, what am I going to sell? I don't want to do fashion. I don't want to do makeup. I feel like every girl does fashion and makeup, and I wanted to do something different. And I think it's because I used to be in engineering. I wanted to do something that was male dominated where I'd really stand out. And so again, weird series of events. At the time when I made this decision, it was the summer of 2020. I didn't have an Instagram yet, but I had an Instagram for my cat because we had just adopted a kitten and I was taking way too many photos. I needed a place to store all the photos. So I made an Instagram for my cat. And
Oh,
yeah, her name is Coco. She's the cutest thing to ever walk this earth, but don't tell her I said that. And so I remember this beautiful woman added me on Instagram and she was living in California at the time and had like 3,000 followers. I was a cat and I had 50 followers. So the algorithm like didn't make sense. So I knew there was something there, right? And so when that woman had reached out to me, she was like, "Hi, Coco." And I was like, "Well, my name's actually Yasmeen." And we started talking and I was like, "Wait, but she's this beautiful Asian lady." I'm like, "You're a minority, you're a woman, and it says entrepreneur." I don't know many female entrepreneurs. I come from, especially on my dad's side, the Arab side, a culture where women aren't usually encouraged to be entrepreneurs, let alone to be the ones that know how money works or handle the money. And so, can you tell me what it's like? And she connected me with her husband. They ran a brokerage and they taught me financial education. And I was so in love with it. I was like, this person who was straight out of college, literally, I knew a bunch of engineering things and like fancy science words, and I didn't know how to do my own taxes. I didn't know what the heck a 401k was, how it worked. I didn't know what on earth I was going to do to retire. I just knew that a lot of Harvard graduates around me were also broke and that something was very wrong because I was convinced that they were going to be the richest creme de la creme, but like, no. And so I was like, you know what? More people need this. More people need financial education. And I was so intimidated about it because every time I tried to ask my guy friends about it, again, had a lot of guy friends because male dominated field, the guys would literally just use really complicated verbatim. And I was a beginner and I didn't even know, but just so that I don't feel stupid, they'd be like, "Do you know what this is?" And I'd be like, "Yes," because I just didn't want to feel stupid. But like, I find that usually when the conversation is between a man and a woman, not always, but usually it kind of leaves the woman, especially if she wasn't well versed, feeling intimidated and dumb. And I've even interacted with, actually, this past weekend, I was talking to one of my guy friends, really smart guy, manages billions of dollars in assets over in Texas. But literally, I was like, hey, what's your recommendation for this and that and the other? And he's like, very literally, you would get laughed out of those rooms just for being a woman because he does
Yeah.
like the big guys, you know?
Yeah.
And then I was like, well, okay, so what advice do you have for me? And he goes, I don't know because I don't live with that barrier, which was refreshing and validating that he
I
understands
love
he
that.
does not live with that barrier. He's an amazing human being. If I could totally name drop him, I would. I love the dude. But like, yeah, it's definitely been a journey. So basically, I run a little brokerage. I help people with financial education. I give people access to investments. And my favorite client is the client that's like me, that they don't come from anything, but they have financial discipline. They want to change their lives. They want to change it badly enough, even if they're only going to sacrifice a couple $100 a month to get started, doesn't matter. And I didn't know the difference between a stock and a bond. So then I taught myself, right? So
Right.
literally, like, you don't have to know anything. People can explain it for you. I can create a space. That's what I do, but other people as well can create a space where you don't feel stupid for asking questions. And that's huge because, again,
Yeah.
I used to be in the science world. I remember every time I tried a new job and they were giving me, like, one time I had this job at Mass General Hospital. It was like an internship at a cancer lab. And the guy's like talking to me and stuff. And I'm like, oh, what's PDT? It was photodynamic therapy, this thing they use for skin cancer. And so he's like, oh, you have a lot to catch up on. And I wanted to look at him and be like, you should never tell somebody that their first day of work. Like, why
Right.
would you expect them to know everything? Why do you treat them like they're dumb? There's this need everywhere in academia, in finance, where some individuals will really make you feel like shit. Just,
Yeah.
you don't have to listen to them. You can find
It's a
people who
it's
aren't going to make you feel dumb.
right. It's a deep-rooted insecurity on their part,
Literally.
which obviously I think you and I have talked a little bit that could even mirror something that's within us, but it actually can stop us from continuing to learn. And it has done that for so many people, especially me and you, just like women who have chosen to be in male dominated fields.
Yeah.
It has not been easy, it's not been easy. But I
I got
think that like my audience totally deserves to know you. You have such a heart for women, and you honestly, like, I was nervous to tell you what I was doing because that's just the way that it is, like coming out and telling
yeah.
people, like, I'm a sex worker, I'm an adult entertainer. And I was afraid of the judgment. I was afraid to lose you as a friend. But there was
Yeah.
that vibe that I was like, I'm going to do it anyway because I need to be authentic. And so I was so excited that you were open to talking about it, and then talking about it with my audience as well. It's been it honestly is a dream for me to have somebody as amazing as you to bring you to my audience. So I do want to know what inspired you to help people with investing and saving money.
Okay. So, what inspired me? There's a lot. There's a lot. I didn't grow up with a lot, but I grew up with enough. So, if you compare me to the average well to do American child, I'm dirt poor. I have not had half the experiences that they had. We didn't have a lot of family vacations. We didn't have that. Our family vacations was like camping or the beach. Like, we didn't go on cruises. We didn't have international travel, right? And whenever we did have money, my parents sent me to go get to know my other families and the other cultures. And one big thing that I remember was this has always been a huge feature of just my personality. My cousins in the Middle East and my aunts and my uncles, sometimes we would hear the bombs in the background when we were talking.
Mm,
And I was always I would say I'm more spiritual than religious, but I do have a relationship with God, right? And by spirituality, I mean my relationship with God is like it is everything. It's like my life would be nothing without it. But I don't care for it to have to look like an organized religion thing. I identify as Muslim. I love Islam. Don't always care for the community because I mean, I'm not trying to act like I'm an angel. I'm not, but like I know the heart that I have, and I've had people literally stop being friends with me because I don't wear the veil, and I'm like, if you think that a piece of cloth has anything to do with my character, you're an idiot. But that's just me. Anyways,
right.
so to each their own. So I've always been very spiritual. And when I would pray to God at night, I'd be like, why am I here? And my cousins are over there. Why?
Right.
I just knew I didn't do anything to deserve the life I have more than them. Right. And so that's where perspective comes in. And then I would think about like, I'm an empath. So it's a curse and a blessing. If I ever saw videos about like any of the genocides in Africa, I would bawl my eyes out and be like, why do I have this life? I could have been born in anybody. Why do I have this safe life? Even if you could say I've had traumas and I have first world problems and stuff, but how do I have this life? And other people are born in a war zone. And there's literally like, it's not like I deserve peace more than them. That doesn't make sense. So the only thing that made sense to me was if God blessed me, I should share that blessing. I should make something out of myself and then I should help people. So originally, I thought that that was going to be through the path of Doctors Without Borders, which is why I decided I wanted to pursue medical school. Long story short, I probably would have never been able to do it because I would have been in school until I'm in my early 30s. Then I would want kids because I have a biological clock. And then at the same time, most people leave medical school so broke. And then with the kids, it's like, you can't just work for free. You can't do Doctors Without Borders. Most people who, I'm not going to like push out numbers, but most people that I know who have either done it or know someone who've done it, they come from generational wealth, right?
Yeah.
I don't come from that. So I
Yeah.
knew my parents would have needed help with their retirement at some point. I know that things are different for me. I didn't want to take out all those loans, be $500,000 in debt after medical school. There was no way. And then you financially break even in your late 40s? Like, really?
Right.
No. And then no. So eventually it just came to I remember being in college. I remember working multiple jobs. I remember that one of my jobs had an HR issue and I wasn't getting a paycheck from them or my work study for over a month. And because I didn't want to ask my mom for grocery money, I went to what was called Arnie's Cupboard and it was a bunch of free canned food. So I got cereal boxes for free, toilet paper, tissue rolls for free, and canned stuff, and I would cook that. And so I basically went to what do you call them in English? Like not a shelter, but the place where you store food, pantry?
Food. Yeah. Food pantry. Yeah.
Pantry? Yeah, I went to a pantry. And I remember thinking, it's okay. I'm in college. There will be further opportunity. But then I leave college only to realize that I was going to be stuck in this rat race forever. And that just didn't feel fair. Now it felt like there was no light at the end of the tunnel. And I didn't know where to start, but what I knew is that I had no idea what the hell to do with my money. So I was like, okay, well, let me start there. And then I've always had this knack for teaching. I used to do private tutoring and teaching of all kinds, from Spanish to kids with speech impediment, helping them learn to read and write and express themselves. My brother grew up with that, so I got good at that. Teach kids how to swim, normal kids, special needs kids, doesn't matter. And I have this thing where I can take a concept and I can explain it 10 different ways. And
Yeah.
so I figured, okay, well, this is a knack I have, and I like people and I want to help people. And most people, like, you can't tell them exercise more if they're working 3 jobs just to make ends meet. You can't tell them eat healthier if they're overstimulated and they don't have the time or bandwidth to meal prep healthy food, right? And so
Yeah.
most people living in extreme poverty are in survival mode. And I said,
Absolutely.
okay, I want to get out of survival mode. I want to learn what that means. I want to build a business. I want to be an example. But then I also want to be that place where it's like, yes, the brown girl right here, you can come to me. You know, you can be a person of color. You can be an immigrant. You can be the child of immigrants. Like being the child of immigrants, I didn't know how anything worked in the US. I was the experimental child. I was the firstborn. We didn't know how FAFSA was. We didn't know how college was. We didn't know anything. We practiced with me. Other people that were generationally in America and they're not first generation, they already had more things figured out, you know?
Yeah.
But my parents didn't know the system here.
Right.
So neither did I. And so it comes into like we live in the age of information, but people want to monopolize information and it makes no sense to me. Why not
Yeah.
just give people the information that they need and they'll do with it what they want?
Absolutely. And I think that it takes someone really brave to be able to be like, I'm going to be the one that does it. And you do it in a way that isn't pushy as well, which has been really helpful for me. I mean, um, you just give it like it's actual information, and
Oh
not
yeah.
like
Yeah.
you're selling to anybody or everybody. But to be honest with you, I feel like this conversation it goes longer and there might need to be another part 2 or part 3 because they're literally, I have so many freaking questions for you. And I think that today we answer some of like the sex work specific ones
Yeah.
that then can align into the other questions that I have for you that I know that are important for wealth in general.
Definitely.
Okay.
Definitely.
Okay,
Mhm.
cool. About how can someone in the adult industry create a retirement plan that works for them?
Okay. So this is, I would say it's touchy because the field that I work in is highly regulated, right?
Mhm.
And every year I have to take anti-money laundering courses, I have to renew things, I have to do continuing education. I can only help people place what is considered to be legal money,
Legal. Yes.
right? Because anything else would be money laundering on my end.
Correct.
Okay. So with that being said, if you do adult work morally and personally, I have nothing against it. I don't. I absolutely don't. That's just my personal opinion. It's always been in existence in the history of humanity. It always will
Yes.
be. In most countries, it is completely legal because they just decided to not be in denial of it. It is what it is. I honestly could never be a lawyer. Legislation makes no sense to me, and the law doesn't make sense to me. I just do my best to try to abide by it, right?
Yeah.
But with that being said, let's say you have two incomes, okay? So I'm going to use a very, I mean, similar to you. Let's say you're waitressing. And then on the side, because waitressing is not enough because the cost of living is impossible, okay? You're waitressing. And then on the side, you do what you need to do to make
OnlyFans. We'll say it's legal work. OnlyFans.
OnlyFans. Perfect. So what I would do, just to err on the side of caution, is we would just go through your income. How much do you make from the ordinary job, the waitressing? How much do you make from the other thing? Okay. What are your life expenses? Do you have dependents? So on and so forth. From there, we can come up with a catered, customized plan to take the more socially acceptable legal money and invest that. And then your other money, so it's kind of reverse. Instead of the job giving you the money for all of your basic bills, and then the other is extra, pretend the extra is the one for all your basic bills, and this one's extra, right? And so from there, I'll show you, depending on what's your budget, what can you afford? Can you afford 200 a month? Can you afford 500? Do you have dependents? It needs to be catered to you. So not one size fits all. Consulting is the way it is for a reason. But from there, okay, can we come up with a monthly plan for you? And what I try to do is I try to set people up with things that are tax free so that you get to keep all of your gains, things that are protected from market crashes. Because if you don't have the time to keep up with the market, you probably shouldn't be losing $10,000 in profit during a really bad economy.
Right.
So people who think that investing is like this adrenaline, crazy, Wolf on Wall Street, crazy charts, day trading, it doesn't have to be that way. It can be boring as hell. And in my opinion, that's how it should be. It should be super boring, on autopilot, protected. You sleep at night, you don't stress, and you don't worry about that. And most people are like, well, how can I invest in something if I can't lose money? There are protected investments. Why isn't this talked about a lot? Because
I know.
you know um but yeah, so things that will not get rid of your profit. Another thing is if you have dependents, okay, because again, a lot of women are watching this. Women, we're incredibly selfless. When we're moms, what do we live for? Our children. So I also help you figure out how to create generational wealth, right? Usually in the
Yeah.
form of a life insurance account. But it's a lot cheaper than you would think. It's a lot more affordable than you would think. But
Yeah.
something to make sure, like, think about it. I wasn't born into generational wealth, so it's my job to create it. And it is a lot
Right.
of freaking work. It is a lot of work to create it. So if I can spare my kids that trouble,
Yes.
all means, right? And so a lot of the times when you're doing this kind of work, even if you're doing it, and like I said, it's not a horrible, evil thing, it's not, but you probably don't want your kids to be doing it. You probably want them to be doing something else, right? And so
Yeah.
if that's the case, why not help set them up? And so a lot of women, like, we don't always think for ourselves. Like, we think for our children, we think for the future. I think about the kids I haven't even had yet. So yeah, I help people figure that out too. And we create a great personalized plan so that they can come up with at least a foundation that'll give them a tax-free retirement, that they're not going to worry about losing all their profits, and some generational wealth to add it to, at the very least.
A lot of us being entrepreneurs don't have predictable income. I mean, it's so rare to have that. And
Yeah.
so, with that, how can someone start building a financial plan with unpredictable income?
That's a really good question. So, this way that you build a financial plan with predictable income is similar to the way that you live on your unpredictable income. So, for example, if my monthly expenses are 1,200 a month, that means I at the very least have to make 1,300, right? So I can pay all those bills and at least have $100 for groceries or sanity. And I mean, including groceries, like let's say 1,200 is with groceries too, is my bills a month. Um, so you know how you have to pay 1,200 at the end of the month for all your bills. So somehow it comes together and it happens, and it's a crazy messy process. When I left the safety of a job to go full time into business, I really faced that like head on, and it took me like 6 months before I was able to, on my own, at least make ends meet. Before that, it was pretty rough. It was. I would say that it wouldn't have been. I had a wonderful savings nest. It went into real estate. So I didn't like keep my savings for safety. I reinvested it right away before I was really ready to do so. And that was really scary. But, now I've been 2.5 years without a steady job because I left that. I gave it up. And honestly, like, I've made ends meet every month. And that has given me a lot of confidence in myself. And so that's one thing when you're an entrepreneur is like, understand that I'm not doing this to bash employees because I've been one. And it's wonderful, but it is so much simpler. I wouldn't say it's easier, but it is so much simpler to be an employee. Life was so simple. You knew exactly what you were going to make. And even if you showed up to work and barely did anything, you would still get paid because you had rights. It's not like that when you're an entrepreneur.
Right.
So that's definitely part of your growth journey. But once you have everything settled, and let's say you're not like balling making a ton of money, but you've been making ends meet, like same here, right? For over a year, you have the hang of it, you know how to make just enough. So then pretend that you have to invest $200 to $300 a month if you're in your 30s. Now, if you're in your 40s, it does get a bit more expensive if you want to make the same amount. Okay. But let's just say $200 to $300, right? So now pretend that instead of 1,200 being your monthly bill, 1,500 is. And treat your expenses like a bill. Like a
Yeah.
bill. Like if you do not pay this, like you don't pay your rent, you're gonna end up on the streets, right? Treat it with
Yeah.
that urgency. It's easier said than done, but it's a good test to how much you care. And that's the thing about life.
Right.
Nobody's gonna care more than you. So if you don't care, I can't even care more than you. I want to help people, but I made a mistake my first year in business of caring more than people cared for their damn self, and that was really hard. So, yeah, that was my problem. I cared too much. Now I kind of like, I'm like, okay, are you a client? Okay, are you ready? Do you care enough? If not, don't waste my time. I am more picky about my time now just because I've been around for 3 years now and I'm just not doing it. I'm not doing the empty conversation.
Absolutely. Yeah.
um like, I want to help you, but you got to want to help yourself. And also, if it's my time, and again, if I do a half an hour of free consulting and you're not paying me for that half an hour, I'm probably not going to want to work with you if you're not in the mood to invest at all,
Right.
right? Because I should be getting something out of it for my time. But
Yeah.
anyways, um, that's how I would say, if you don't have predictable income, but you've been making ends meet, add an extra few hundred to your monthly
Yeah.
expenses, pretend like it's a bill, and psychology and everything else will do the rest.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And I feel like that is what something that has worked really well for money for me this year is pretending
Yeah.
that it needs to be included.
Yeah.
Like you don't know where it's coming from. Well, pretend like you know where it's coming from and start including it because you
Yeah.
can't just like make this stuff up out of thin air constantly. Your brain gets super tired. You get frustrated. You get burnt down to
Yes.
the brim of what you're trying to do, and you get frustrated and then kind of give up. And honestly, I feel like that has been my own experience, and I know that it's been a lot of women that I know their experience as well.
And
So
a lot of the times, like if we're tired, and I'm not saying don't live, not saying that,
yeah.
but if we're tired, we just want to splurge and then we'll invest the rest. And that's what people do is they pay their bills and then they pay for all the luxuries they want. And then whatever's left is what they invest. You have to change your mindset. Like you really do. You know what I mean? Like who do you
Yeah.
have to impress? People don't matter that much. They really don't. Like, I drive a beat up Toyota. My guy drives a whole Tesla. The men are the ones that really want the nice car so they can impress the ladies. We don't have to impress anybody. Just put
Right.
a little lip gloss and you're fine. Your job is just to sit there and look pretty. You're fine. You don't have to spend a shit ton of money, pardon my French, on like things that don't matter, you know? So if you can
Yeah.
rewire your brain and treat your investments like they matter more than everything else, you're going to be a lot better off, even if you don't see the difference in 1 year. Investing is a long
It
term game.
takes time.
You're going to
It
see it
takes
in a decade
time.
more. You're going to be like, oh my God. And trust me, you don't want a decade to go by. Like, let's say there's two situations. A decade could go by. You're older, you know, your life is more expensive. You're closer to when people get old, they get all these health complications. You're just basically at more risk because you're older. Okay.
Yeah.
You're running out of time and you have nothing to show for it versus 10 years into the future, you've got 50 grand invested. You put away 30, it made 20 in compound interest over the last 10 years. You got 50 grand sitting and waiting for you.
Yeah.
Two very different scenarios.
Yeah. Well, like I said, it's a longer conversation too, to like even really be able to compound on like all of your information, not all of it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
More information that's beneficial for people to understand what you do and how you serve people. So I definitely want people to be able to find you. That is the number one goal here, is how can we find you?
So I will give you my business email, my podcast as well. My podcast will have my Calendly link to it. So whenever you
Okay.
listen to an episode, I started a podcast. I'm 2 episodes in. I have to record more this weekend. But literally, like the second episode, I went over terminology. So this podcast is supposed to help anybody who does not know anything about financial education and maybe feels too shy to ask. They don't want to ask their circle. They feel embarrassed and just in their own privacy would like to learn on their own time. I am creating a podcast, free
That's awesome.
education. It's going to be the basics, basically. Like you could find it anywhere else in the internet, everything that I'm saying, but I'm just going to be putting it all in one place for you. And it will not have the personalized aspect. You have to meet with me for that, which helps you tie in all the ends. But just in general, for you to feel more confident and well versed, the podcast, I'll send you the link.
We're doing Instagram too, right?
Yes.
Okay. And I'll put your Instagram uh, down below as well.
Yeah.
So I want to thank you again for coming here. It means so much to me, and I know it's going to mean something to my audience too. Just love that you're open to working with people like us,
Ordinary people.
ordinary people, not
That have
all
to
the
do what they
things.
have to do. Okay, I'm not okay. I'm gonna leave it on this. Again, consulting wise, just in case anybody comes and tries to find me legally, I can only help you invest legal money. I'm making it very apparent. Okay. The morality standpoint, I literally busted my ass off in university, cried all the time, barely made it through organic chemistry to get an engineering degree. And I made like 63K pre tax a year in the city of Boston, which is nothing. Okay. That's what I made at my damn job. And I remember they were like, you need a retention bonus because we need to keep you. They were like 10K post tax, 6K. Really, I'm only pocketing 6K because of all the freaking taxes. Okay. But now get this. But you're telling me that with what God gave me, because no, I have not done plastic surgery, and I don't have one. Spoiler alert, I don't. But I could be making six figures on OnlyFans just to look pretty. Where's the incentive? Are we really in the wrong for taking the freaking incentive? Like, are you serious?
Right, right. No,
Serious?
I know. I know the
You want women to be honorable and study and do university, but how much was I really making after all the?
right. No, I know.
I left in debt.
That's why I'm doing what I'm doing and helping people tear down the shame and the guilt, because like
Jesus.
this is so much deeper work. It is so much deeper work, and understanding like what you're talking about, one there, that our worth is no longer in this whole ideal system of what you're talking about, what has always kind of been. But then two, like this woman work, there is power. There is absolute, to me, there is power
But
in the
they don't
pussy.
want women
That's
to have
it's a
power.
big deal.
But how
Teaching
scary
women.
is it? How scary is it to men that like very literally some women, I mean, I would argue all, but okay, let's just say some, because some of them manage to do it, are so beautiful that a maybe rich but desperate man will literally pay $20,000 just to be with her. She is powerful. That is scary. So of course they're going to use all those disgusting words like whore and this and that. And I hate those words. And then they do it and it's like, but you're willing to pay the price. So the very politicians that are like, this is illegal are the ones that are willing to pay the freaking price.
Right. No, I know. I
It's
know.
like, it's like the hypocrisy is insane. And I think it's because women and our beauty is literally so, it's so powerful. Men act like they're, oh, because they're physically stronger. Well, we're so pretty that like very literally men will go to the ends of the earth for us. Does that scare you? I think so. I think
I
so.
love that. I love
It's
that.
true.
It's so
It's
fucking
true.
true.
Men literally get rich just to have women. At
Yeah.
the end game is always women. They do all things because they need women. No party is without women.
Yes. Exactly. Agreed. And I honestly thank you for bringing that